Hey everyone, it's Judy Cohen, and this is Wake Up Call 495. Nice to see you all, and big hugs and hellos to all of the new people who are here, including some of you and some of our longtime people who I got to meet and hang out with at last week's Mindfulness and Law Society conference. Wasn't it great? So I've missed you all again. I've been gone since I think it's July 3rd, and here we are on the last day of July. And I feel like I always say this, but a lot has happened in the last few weeks in the year, and so it's just good to be together in this way. It's kind of a refuge from everything. So lately, we've been looking at something called the three trainings. And these are the three ways that mindfulness invites us to train our minds. And our minds, of course, being this whole being, right? Not only the mind that resides upstairs, but also the body, which doesn't really have a mind of its own, but it's part of this whole system. And, when we're doing this training, sometimes we're training based on what comes in, on the data we're receiving. But sometimes we want to be aware it may be coming in through our traditional mind, the brain. Sometimes it's coming in from our hearts. Sometimes it's coming in from our guts. Might even be coming in from our fingertips or our toes, right? So we're really training this whole being. And the three trainings are just one scheme, and mindfulness has a few. And so in this scheme, we're training with the first element, which is dana or generosity. And then the second one, which is sila or ethics. And then the third one, which is bhavana, which is traditionally or classically translated as concentration. So if you're new to the wake up call and you're interested in hearing a little bit about dana and sila in the context of lawyering, um, then you can find that on past wake up calls. I've been talking about that this summer and in the spring. And today I want to talk a little bit about bhavana. So again, bhavana is often translated as concentration, and the idea is that to be a mindful person and a mindful lawyer, we want to train in generosity and ethics and to be concentrated or focused. So concentration as a practice is a whole path, and some of you may have heard of jhana practice, in which a practitioner is invited into ever deeper levels of concentration. And I have just the wispiest, most basic familiarity with that practice. I'm not going to talk about that, but for the most part, for our purposes, unless we're planning on training with the jhanas on long retreats and with someone who is a qualified teacher, bhavana is more about everyday concentration, which is primarily about relaxing the mind. And jhana states, as I understand it, are also about relaxing the mind in ever greater degrees. But let's play with the idea of bhavana as a practice of ordinary relaxation in each moment. So, what does it mean to relax the mind? Right? And it might mean something different for each of us, but I'm going to start with that. It's not something we learned in law school. When I look at this mind here, this whole body mind or body heart mind, it's kind of the opposite, right? I was trained to keep things taut. In other words, to keep the body on the ready, to keep the mind on the ready, to say how high if anyone even remotely nearby yelled jump. And the same, with this cognitive mind, I was trained to be ready to analyze, to respond, often with a counterpoint or argument, but always with the right answer in any moment. And not only to do that in any moment, but to be able to switch from whatever was on my mind in any given moment, whether that was a different case or matter, or a thought like, I need to call mom, or I wonder how my daughter did on her French test, right? And not only to switch, but to be able to switch back and forth and back and forth. I have this recollection of so many times when a partner would poke their head into my office and say, "Got a sec?" Or a kid would appear and I'd look up from some, or a kid would appear and I'd be at home working. And in either case, I'd look up from some, 50-page industrial lease with this completely confused and unfocused look, right? And it would take a minute before I could switch to, sure, have a seat, or sure, you can have another piece of pizza, help yourself, right? So in one way, you could say that the mind, maybe the mind body, was focused on the lease, and that was a concentrated mind. And that wouldn't be completely wrong. It was. It was concentrated and focused on the lease, but it was also, I would say, a very sharp-edged mind, right? Reading for whether each provision was correct, for was it good for my client? Could it be used against my client in the future? Could it be dispensed with? Could it be better written? Could it be condensed? Was it in line with the latest case law or the statutes, right? So everybody here understands, right? So concentrated and focused, but not relaxed, right? And that legal mind on alert, analyzing, thinking, arguing, we trained that mind. So we're talking about the trainings of Donna and Sila and Bhavna. We trained the legal mind too. We walked into law school and maybe some of us read for the bar, but over that time, over those years, those 3 years in law school, however long it took you to read for the bar, we intentionally cultivated those qualities of mind, even if we never sat down and told ourselves that's what we were doing. And we might have done that too, because some of it just comes under the basic rubric of critical thinking, right? And some of what we may have been taught in law school was also explicit. And the reason I mention that is because the mind that's relaxed, that form of concentration, that takes time too, right? That takes training too. Or at least it has for me and continues to be a training for me. So some of you know I was just on a retreat. It was a 9-day retreat, a loving kindness retreat. And it was a privilege to be there, an amazing retreat, and to do some pretty intensive training in this kind of relaxed concentration. Metta practice, loving kindness practice is considered this kind of practice. And now I'm back, and then between the retreat and there was the Mindfulness and Law Society conference, the training is there. I remember it, but it's not instantly available the way it was during the retreat or at the end of the retreat, right? So I'm continuing to train on the cushion in my formal practice right here, and also in portable practice throughout the day. But I'm just saying, relaxing the mind, it takes some training, right? And some time. So I'll share a little bit about the Metta retreat next week. But for today, let's just sit together and we'll play around with a little bit of relaxation practice. Okay?